Welcome. Thank you all for joining us for First Thursdays. You're here at First Thursdays with Sustainable Tulsa, and we're thrilled to see so many new faces and also regulars here again today. So thank you all for joining us. This is our second time here at TCC Creativity Center, and we're thrilled for this partnership with TCC. I want to do a shout out to Mike Lemus back there taking pictures with TCC for their working with us on our new relationship to help our program, but also help TCC with their sustainability programming and initiatives. So thank you, Mike, for that. Also want to give a thank you to PSO as our lead sponsor for First Thursdays. And I don't know if I see Carrie, but we want to thank her, of course, Matt Newman with Cavanta. He's been our longest standing sponsor for First Thursdays. And then, of course, our new First Thursday sponsors, TCC and Mike McCann with McCann Law. Mike, are you out there? Give a little wave. There we go. Let's give them a round of applause. I also want to thank Mike Lemus and Matt Newman, our board members that are here today with us, and for their leadership. We've got an exciting year ahead of us, so I appreciate you all being here today. We have a goodbye and a hello as well that I want to say. Will Briere has been interning with us for a year now. We met him at First Thursdays, I think exactly a year from today. It was in August. He has really helped us out with our scorecard, and then he helped out filling in this summer as the interim projects coordinator. And he is heading to DC for grad school. So let's give him a thank you and give him a good send-off. So we have to keep making Tulsa better so we get him to come back from DC. So that's all of our work together here. And then there's a welcome. I want to welcome our new projects coordinator. That is Sabrina Bevins. She welcomed you as you came in. So there she is. Let's give her a round. Sabrina is coming to us from STEM Alliance, and I think she's got a few of her colleagues here today, and we're just thrilled to have her join our family and our team. So please welcome her on your way out if you haven't already. Sabrina, welcome to the team. Thank you. So just a few other quick updates. We've got our final scorecard event. It'll be part of our B2B series, a quarterly series, and we'll actually be in this room, so TCC Creativity Center. It'll be August 31st. It's a morning program, and we will be celebrating the successes of over 32 companies that participate in the scorecard this year, and TCC is one of them. And I will say we had over 1,000 sustainability activities that reported on in the scorecard, and that is really exciting. And this is just the beginning with Tulsa. There are so many companies and organizations interested in sustainability and really wanting to make a difference and seeing a savings. So we'll be reporting on that on August 31st. So join us for that. And there's some information about the B2B back there at the back, or you can ask Will and Sabrina about that as well. Also, we have our Henry Bauman Sustainability Awards. That'll be September 14th, and that'll be at Southern Hills Country Club, and hopefully you will join us for that. And that's one of our fundraisers, and it's also a chance to see the successes of Tulsans and Oklahomans that are an expression of sustainability. It's a diverse expression, and it covers people, profit, and planet, and we just love celebrating them. I also wanted to recognize we have Colonel T, Secretary of the Environment and Energy. If you'll give a wave here, thank him for being here today. Two other quick announcements before we get started with the program. I want to invite Jennifer Hadaway to come up. She's going to give us a real quick overview of the GO plan. And I know we've talked about that in some of our other sessions, but this is a chance to just get a little quick update about that as it relates to what we're going to hear about Bike Share. So Jennifer, are you? There we go. Let's welcome Jennifer.
Hi, thank you for having me here today. So just before I start going into a few of those details, how many of you guys here have heard about the GO plan? Yeah, a lot of hands. That's great. So for those of you who have not heard about it, it is our first regional bicycle and pedestrian master plan. It will connect the entire region with a network of bicycle infrastructure, which will include some trails, but a lot of on-street infrastructure, which includes bike lanes. You may have seen some on 3rd Street and a couple of other areas where we're starting to see some bike lanes come in. In downtown MLK in Detroit, we have a buffered bike lane that is close to the Brady district and on in Greenwood district. So we have a couple of those that have already been implemented in accordance with the plan. And then there's also the pedestrian side of that, which addresses our gaps in the pedestrian infrastructure, mainly our sidewalks. We have a lot of sidewalks in Tulsa, and unfortunately we have a lot of gaps within that infrastructure, so it does create some dangerous and some safety issues within that corridor. So what we're wanting to do with this plan is to create better connections, better network for all of those people who are walking or biking within our city. So that plan was adopted regionally in the fall of last year, 2016, and through NCOG, which is our regional MPO, all of our surrounding communities, the city of Tulsa, Bixby, not Bartlesville, but Broken Arrow, and all of them around us are a part of that regional group. They adopted it as a regional policy, but now you're starting to see them take it a step further and adopt it within their own comprehensive plans of their cities. So far, Collinsville, Owasso, and Broken Arrow has adopted it into their comp plans, and currently, the city of Tulsa is working on that. It's gone to their TMAPC work session, and it'll be going to their planning commission August 16th, and then it'll be going before city council in September. So if all of you guys or whoever here would like to see better bicycle and pedestrian improvements within our city, I would encourage you to either reach out to your city council or to show up to the meeting to show your support in this historic step towards creating a better network for our city. So that would be our quick update. Do you want to ask questions, or I don't know how much time you have. We can handle one or two. Okay, yeah. Okay, 1 or 2 questions. What was that? Someone over here. Where's the meeting? When's the meeting? So there's a couple. Planning Commission will be at City Hall, and that'll be August 16th. I don't have the time yet, actually. So we will actually be posting that within the City of Tulsa's website when you look on their Planning Commission meeting agenda. If you ever, I don't know if you've seen that or not, but if you go to their website, they post all of their public meetings. It'll be on there. I do know it'll be August 16th.
Maybe one last question, and then we'll transition if there's, and we can have you come back another time to give us a deeper update. So.
And if you guys would like to see the map and actually have a visual of what this infrastructure is going to look like and where those pedestrian sidewalk gaps are going to be filled, tulsatrc.org/GoPlan has an ArcGIS map that's interactive, and you can kind of pinch in and get closer or move out and see the entire network from a regional standpoint. Again, that's tulsatrc.org/GoPlan. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, and one other real quick update. So in the theme of bikes, we invited the health department to come and share their blender bike. Have you seen it back there? You can have a smoothie by your own power. So I was going to have Natalie just come up and give a brief explanation of that, and if you're interested for programmings that you're doing, how you might be able to go about that. Thank you, Natalie.
Sure. Well, I'm so glad to be here today. I see a lot of familiar faces. The program within the health department that has the blender bike is called It's All About Kids. And they take the bike out to elementary schools, mostly to some that have bike clubs, after-school bike clubs. But they teach the kiddos about healthy foods. They let the kiddos put the ingredients in, make their own smoothie. The kiddos get to mix it up, and they seem to really enjoy it. I think because it's something that they made. So the bike, since that's what you guys talking about today, Corey was gracious enough to let us bring it. I hope that you will come back and give it a try and blend up your own smoothie. So, and it's not as loud as I thought it was going to be. So feel free, come back and blend up your own smoothie. So thanks for having us today.
Great. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, now the program today, it's Tulsa Bike Share, which is a new program that some of you maybe have heard about, or this is you can't wait to hear about it. This is one of your first introductions to this. And we're super excited to have Daniel Sperle to come and visit with us. He's a Tulsa native that returned to Tulsa after graduating from the University of Oklahoma with a bachelor's in fine arts and visual communication. After graduating from OU, he went to work for a graphic designer and branding agency in Oklahoma City and specialized in developing visual identities and marketing for small businesses. During this time, he had the opportunity to work with an investment firm heavily invested in downtown development projects in Oklahoma City, which sparked his interest in urban design. After a year of working as a graphic designer, Daniel decided to return to Tulsa to pursue a master's in architectural urban design at the Urban Design Studios from OU Urban Design Studio. While attending the OU Urban Design Studio, he worked for retail business, helping design and build an e-commerce site and inventory tracking system that could withstand their project growth. Daniel's diverse background in graphic design, business development, and management, as well as urban design, led him to his current role as the Executive Director of Tulsa Bike Share, immediately following his completion of this graduate program in 2016. So anyway, thank you so much. Let's welcome Daniel.
It's always really funny for me to hear my background because I'm like, wow, am I just confused or was this like a really logical plan? Thank you, Corey. Really excited to be here today. I think as you just heard, there was a lot of things that led to my interest to applying for this job. Worked for, I'm sure if you guys have ever been to Oklahoma City, worked with an investment firm there that did like the Deep Deuce District, and now they're doing the Wheeler District in Oklahoma City. Very interesting. But one of the things I kept finding myself thinking anytime I talk to these people is, dang it, this would be so much cooler in Tulsa because it's Tulsa and Oklahoma City is trash. I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. But really, as a native Tulsan, you really just can't ever seem to plant your roots in Oklahoma City because it's just not as interesting, in my opinion. The people make it here, so it's that much better. Anyway, that's kind of a side note. We're here to talk about Bike Share, which I'm really excited about. I actually was just reminded by Facebook today that today actually marks my 1-year anniversary of getting this job. So that was really crazy. Thank you. And it actually is funny, too, because I finished the Urban Design Studio program on the 9th and not the 3rd. So I actually defended my professional project while also starting this job. So this week also marks a year of a lot of tears. Like that week was terrible. And so it's kind of funny reflecting back on that a year later. I cried a lot. It was really terrible, but here we are. Anyway, we'll get started. So how many of you even knew that Bike Share was coming to Tulsa? I guess that's a good place. Okay, of course. You guys are like the target audience, so it makes complete sense. Well, that's good. So what is bike sharing? We'll start there. It would just give you a general overview if you didn't know. The definition, the book definition would be self-service fleet of hardy, user-friendly bikes, ideal for point-to-point trips within a system service area. Obviously, very boring definition in my opinion, but it's active transportation, it's innovative, it's adaptable, it's convenient and affordable, it's environmentally friendly, and then most of all, it's fun. I think if you have ever ridden on a bike, you know that feeling with the wind in your hair and just the activity of itself is really enjoyable and really fun and always kind of takes you back to your childhood years. But now it's being adapted into a transportation system, and we're beginning to see how that can be fun as adults as well. So this is kind of the most interesting part, is if you really think about how bike share over the years has developed. So the first generation between the 60s and the 90s, much like TU's Yellow Bike program, if any of you went to TU or know how that operates, it's basically like a library system for bikes. So if you think about it, you're a member and you can go and access those bikes. But the problem here is there's a lot of theft involved in this because there's no buy-in from that customer. So it's free, and so you could really just basically go and take the bike if you want and then never return it, and that happened a lot. But there was a lot of cities in Europe that tried this, and then that kind of transferred over into some of the western Seattle, Portland, the expected places. So that was the first generation. So really what that would look like is a traditional bike. They were typically branded or painted in a specific way for members to recognize them, but then they would just have a specific lock with a specific code that you could basically lock up anywhere, and if you found one, you found it, but there really wasn't any system for where those were parked or how you could find them. Not convenient at all. So if you wanted to use a bike for something specific, it was probably unlikely that you could find a bike. The second generation that came about in the 80s and 90s was a coin-operated system. So you would actually put a coin into the bike itself. It would then release the lock on the bike, and then you could go and use this. This also just had really poor usage, required a little bit more infrastructure, also required people to know how to use this, and I think this was a very innovative program at the time, so people didn't understand. And then again, you're using one coin to access a bike, and then there's no responsibility for that person to return it. So really, this person's like, cool, I can buy a bike for a coin. That's about it. And then that transferred over in the third generation in the early 2000s, mostly in Europe. Some of these systems did exist in the US as well, to a credit card processing machine. So they did require a deposit, so you're actually getting that buy-in, which reduced the amount of theft. But the biggest thing here was a lot of the times these machines had to be hardwired into the road or into the sidewalk. So they require a lot more infrastructure. It was a lot more difficult for people to actually implement systems like this just because of the cost and the excavation that was required to do so. So then from there, now we get into the fourth generation or current day. And the two primary systems that you're going to see are what you call a smart dock or a smart bike system. So a lot of you are probably familiar with a smart dock system just from seeing them in larger cities. So New York City with City Bike is probably the most prominent one, the most people have heard of at some point or the other. But then also if you've been to Boulder, Kansas City, Austin, all of these people are operating a smart dock system. And really what that looks like is you have a smart dock. So the dock where the bike actually is parked has a computer on it that communicates with the payment kiosk. So the bikes themselves don't actually have any technology on them other than an RFID reader that knows when the bike is released from that dock and when it's returned to another dock. And so that's each of those radio frequencies is going to have a specific code that communicates with the computer system to tell it, okay, this specific bike was returned to this dock. But there's a lot of things that come with that aren't quite as interesting, in my opinion, as the smart dock system. So the biggest difference is you have a payment kiosk where you have one kiosk for each of those docking systems. So bike has to be returned to a dock in order for that to work, and that it communicates with the kiosk. And so you do have the ability to use these modular docking systems or expand or shrink a specific station as needed. And they are solar powered, but they can also be hardwired into the ground if you like. But most people most cities end up going with the solar power so that they can move stations around as necessary. And then the biggest difference in a smart bike system is that they actually don't require a payment kiosk. So they've eliminated the technology on the dock itself and then housed all of the technology on the bike. This is really interesting because it eliminates a lot of the initial capital costs for infrastructure. In my opinion, this is cool because it actually allows you to buy a lot more with your money, just because the two biggest costs on the smart dock system are the dock and the payment kiosk. So with a smart bike, you've eliminated basically both of those, and the kiosk becomes your phone. And so you actually can use a smartphone. Most of these smart bike systems do supplement with some additional payment kiosks in their system for what they refer to as a casual user. So this is someone who is typically and a little bit older, or maybe not as familiar with the city, or doesn't want to download the mobile application. And so they would have the option to access a bike from that kiosk, but you're just going to have fewer of those opportunities. Same thing though, you have a modular docking system. So typically you can do on the smart, so I'll back up a little bit. On the smart docks, it's like 6 or 4 docks per modular like station. And then on the smart bike, you can do it with just one. So you can do odd or even numbers, just depending on what you want to do, but it's a lot more flexible than the smart dock system itself. And then these are battery powered. So this is actually probably one of the biggest downsides on the current smart bike systems that exist is, as you can imagine, batteries die and they have to be replaced a lot. And so that becomes a really big operational expense, just making sure that you have backup batteries, but then thinking about the manpower to go and replace those batteries as well requires a lot of money and time. Okay, but how does it work? Pretty simple. I think most of you could probably guess. So you're going to walk up to either the bike itself or to a kiosk and use your credit card or your individual PIN code to access a bike. You can use a personal membership card that is a RFID card or membership card, or you can just use your individual PIN code on the smart bikes. And then for subsidized memberships, this is a really big deal across the nation right now, is if you think about those that are of low income and don't have a credit card, or people that just choose to be unbanked in general, is you have to have some sort of credit card here in order to access the system. And so Philadelphia, actually, if you have interest in this side of things, in the social justice side, has an entire program developed around this where they are partnered with 7-Eleven and Come and Go's, and they can actually go and purchase a passcode from them, and then that is registered through 7-Eleven or Come and Go, and so they can actually track that person's use of the bike, even though they might not have a credit card. So they can pay cash, they get the individual PIN code, and then these programs that they operate are typically subsidized by private organizations that are specifically interested in this, because as you can imagine, you're not getting that buy-in from the customer per se, and so there is an opportunity for that bike to be stolen. That is a risk you're going to run, but it's really important, I think, across the board for bike share to be accessible to all people. And so it's a barrier, but I think it's something that a lot of people are putting a lot of time, effort, and money into figuring out. And I think this is a really interesting method. Unfortunately, I don't know if you guys have noticed, we don't have any convenience stores downtown. So we are actually currently working with MTTA to work on this type of system through a cash pay system, where we would actually use a transit rider's same pass that they would use to access a bus to access a bike. So we're still working on how that information is shared and working on the profit sharing and a MOU and all the logistics that go into that, but we're really excited to be partnering with MTTA on that process. So then you have several different options as far as a membership: casual, monthly, or annual members. And then also you can have weekend passes typically, or a lot of times with large universities, they'll provide a student discount or a student membership. And that is something that we're looking at doing with TU and TCC as we expand outside of the IDL and whatnot. And then typically what you're going to see with a smart dock system is, this is hilarious in the bike share industry, and it still confuses me to this day, but they call it a free period. It's not free. You're paying for it, but how they communicate this, and so what I say is typically 30 to 45 minutes is included within your initial purchase, whereas most systems are going to say you get 30 to 45 minutes for free. And so I think when people access bike share in other cities, they're thinking, oh my gosh, I get to use this for 30 to 45 minutes for free, but that's only after you pay the access fee. And so then a lot of people end up getting really confused when they get their bank statement back and go, oh wait, I thought I was not paying for this, and then you actually are. So something that I think we'll include into our process is thinking about how you communicate that, because as someone who has used bike share in a number of cities, that still confuses me why that's become the standard of how that's communicated. Anyway, but there is a time limit that is included with your initial purchase, typically 30 to 45 minutes in most cities, and why they do that is really to encourage these point A to point B trips. So you really want bike share to be something that is can be used by everyone and not necessarily a recreational usage. So that's really so you're not competing with recreational bike rentals. We have a number of those downtown. Tulsa bicycle tours. Each of the bike shops typically run something as well where you can go and actually rent a bike for an entire day. And that's something that we don't want to compete with those. And so you do that by creating time limits and then also doing it through a pricing structure to ensure that a user isn't going to take that bike and run around for 8 hours. They could, but they're going to get charged for it. So that's good for us. But okay, how did it get started? I think this is probably the most fascinating thing that to me when I came on is that this process actually started in 2014. So actually Jennifer, who actually had to leave to go to another meeting, led a large portion of this effort through INCOG, starting in 2014. So the Indian Nation Council of Governments hired Alta Planning, which they have a really interesting background in the bike share industry. They actually launched one of the first systems in Canada or North America, and then it bankrupted, and so then they became consultants, which is really fascinating to me that you can bankrupt a system and then become the expert. But they actually really are a fantastic group of consultants, and they have offices all over the U.S. But they conducted a feasibility study beginning in November, and then in 2015 they decided, okay, cool, it is feasible in Tulsa, and so would you like to move forward with this? INCOG decided that they were going to invest additional funds into creating a strategic business plan. And so out of that strategic business plan, INCOG led some of the initial fundraising efforts, one of the biggest ones being that they secured a CMAQ grant, which is the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Grant. There's a lot of money or a lot of federal dollars wrapped up into this, and they fund a lot of different programs in Tulsa. But for us, this was $750,000 over 3 years, which is a phenomenal amount of money to receive. And what's even funnier is that most bike share systems in the U.S. have some sort of CMAQ funding wrapped into their funding each year. But what was amazing is INCOG was actually able to use this towards operating funds. And this makes me look like some hot shot in the bike share industry, even though I had nothing to do with this, and this was really INCOG. But they're like, how did you do that? How did you get this to be operational funding when most of the time it can only be allocated towards capital expenses? So INCOG's kind of incredible in that regard, and I always want to give them a shout out because they don't necessarily get the recognition that they receive because a lot of times it's behind the scenes. But they really are the ones that led this. Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely. No, and they're a great staff, and they have led a lot of these initial efforts, and I don't think a lot of people realize how much time and effort that they put into this before I even came on. So I've been on for a year now, and as you can see, they started this in 2014, and we're almost to the 4 months till 2018, guys. I don't know if you realize that, but... Okay, so then in 2016, the organization was formed in April, and then they basically formed the board of directors immediately out of that, developed a partnership with Tulsa Tough. So we're actually an LLC, but we're housed under Tulsa Tough's 501c3 nonprofit, and we'll do that for the first 3 years, and then really the idea would be that we either break off and develop our own nonprofit or pursue a 501c3 allocation, or hopefully my dream would be that we are producing enough revenue at that point that we really don't need to worry about that. So as long as all of you are out there riding bikes and giving me money, that'd be great. So then I was hired, actually, as I said, I was hired late July, but started today, a year ago, which is still really crazy to me. But then we immediately went into an RFP process, which was crazy because I've never encountered one of these before, and so that's a request for proposal for those that you didn't know. I didn't know when I started. They just kept saying RFP, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So we released the RFP in that same month in August, and then we received proposals over 3 to 4 months, and then in January started reviewing those and doing vendor interviews to begin contract negotiations over the equipment that we're going to purchase. Crazy story, we're still in contract negotiations. Something that people told me happens is it takes forever to do these things. They were right. Still here about 7 months later, 8 months later, and we should sign that next week. So that feels really good, and that's kind of incredible. But in the midst of that, we've been doing some really exciting things. We've been developing a lot of partnerships, like I said, with MTTA, but as well as the Tulsa Hub. We're going to be working with them on they'll be helping us with our maintenance and operations. So that's another portion of this project that we're really excited about, is that we have built in some social justice into the way that we actually operate, which is very unique for bike share in general. A lot of times these systems are using outside operators that are housed in separate cities. For us, we really wanted something local and for our dollars to be spent here rather than seeing those dollars be spent in some national office in Philadelphia, which Alta is typically one of those operators, which is really funny. Another big thing that we're really excited about is the brand and identity development. So we will not be operating as Tulsa Bike Share. That was really just an identity and a name that we developed to get things off the ground. But we've been working with Get With Creative over the last month, and we've developed a new logo and a new brand and a new identity and a new system name. So stay tuned, because we're going to be announcing that in a few weeks or a few months. I don't really know yet, so stay tuned, because that's going to be really exciting for me, and I think for the board and the marketing team especially. When we were looking at some of these benchmarks or some of these other cities, is you see that there's not a lot of creativity involved in the development of the system or the name, and a lot of times it is just something bike share. And for us, we really wanted it to be unique to Tulsa and be representative of our community and something that the community could buy into and have fun with, rather than just stating what it is. Did you know that Tulsa already has a bike share system? Raise your hand. This is really interesting. Okay, so most of you probably know this as the pink bikes on the river, rather than what its actual name is, which is the Tulsa Townie system. So this is crazy. This is actually the first self-automated bike share system in North America, like the very first. So the Warren Foundation launched this in 2007, and then I believe that the second system to launch in North America was in 2010. So for the first time ever, Tulsa was actually ahead of the curve, guys. I mean, phenomenal, but... So we could thank the Warren Foundation for that, because this really was their forward thinking, and they do a lot of travel overseas in order to see what is being done in other cities. And they saw this being done in Europe, and they wanted to bring this to Tulsa. And I think this is the kind of energy that we have really wanted to build into our organization, is realize that for the first time ever in something, Tulsa was the first, and we want to continue with that progression and make sure that we're carrying that same energy into the development of this system. And this was really the first week that I started. So a year ago today, I basically went straight to a conference in Austin with a bunch of bike share operators from across the nation and from all over the world. And it was phenomenal for me, as this tiny little system from Tulsa, to walk into a room and have people from Boston, New York City, and Minneapolis come up to me and be like, "You're from Tulsa? Do you have the Tulsa Townie system?" And I'm like, "No, we don't, because that's not our system, but also, why do you know about that?" And it's crazy, but they are so intrigued with the fact that we are still operating this system and that it's still operating at some of the highest usage in the nation. So when you compare these numbers in terms of the system size and the number of bikes that we have, Tulsans actually like to bike. I don't know if any of you bike yourself, but it's really phenomenal. And like I said, we're kind of celebrities in the bike share industry, however small it may be. But I felt really good in Austin. Okay, so what can we expect? We're going to be launching in downtown either late 2017 or early 2018. So I can't share too much about the bikes just yet. So we've actually been working with our vendor, and we're really excited because we've selected an equipment that is going to be the first of its kind. And that product is still in development. So that's a big thing that we're waiting on, is to hear back exactly when those bikes are going to be ready for delivery. They're in their final beta test now, and so they're making final adjustments to that, and we expect that they're going to be delivered in November, and then our goal would be to launch immediately. So we're hoping that they arrive early November. As we've already experienced, there's been delays, as you can imagine, with the new product. And so We're hopeful that this would be the last time that it would be delayed, but there is always a chance, so don't hold me to that. But our goal would be that as soon as those bikes arrive in Tulsa, as long as it's not mid-January during an ice storm, that we would go ahead and put those bikes on the ground, because as we know, weather in Oklahoma is crazy, and there's always a few nice days in the winter that we think that it'd be a great opportunity for people to get out and ride. A big portion of what we're wanting to do is a community-centered system. So developing partnerships locally and making sure that we're creating access to these bikes for special events or for specific people, and making sure that this is something that everyone in Tulsa can access and that there's not going to be a barrier to entry. So whether that's developing a cash pay system with MTTA or partnering with other convenience stores as we expand outside of downtown, one thing we really want to do is make sure that there's not going to be a barrier, whether it's cost or the fact that you just don't have a credit card, or whether it's placement of a station, is that we're going to be really receptive to feedback from the community and make sure that we're trying to plan accordingly. And part of that is the transit-oriented network development. So through that partnership with MTTA, we are heavily involved in discussions around the bus rapid transit lines that are going to be implemented along Peoria and along 11th Street. And one thing that we're really excited about is that card, the membership card, that would allow you to access a bus as well as a bike with one single pass, and that we'll figure out some kind of profit sharing method there. It's a lot more difficult than I would have imagined, but it is possible because it's been done. That we will have a bike share station at each of the BRT stops, because a large mission of bike share as a whole is that it's a last mile connector. So as you can imagine, buses aren't going to drop you off at your doorstep or drop you off at your ultimate destination necessarily. And so what bike share is really meant to do in a transit network is that it allows you to connect your ultimate destination, because it gives you a little bit more flexibility or control over where you're going. And then, as I mentioned, a big portion of this too is that we want to continue in this energy of being an innovative program to complement the history and the future of what we believe biking in Tulsa can be. We were already at the forefront, and we believe that with the equipment that we've selected and that with the system we're developing, that we're going to be a national standard as well with this. So stay tuned as we release more information about the bikes themselves and how the system is going to operate. It's going to be really exciting, and I think that hopefully it'll be something that will put Tulsa on the map again. And then as we expand outside of the IDL, we're definitely going to follow public and private investment, so things like BRT, but then also 11th Street is experiencing a lot of revitalization. As you can imagine, the gathering place is going to be a big portion of where we plan to put bikes. So we actually plan to expand outside of the IDL as soon as the gathering place launches next summer. Okay, so phase one, we are looking at 19 stations and then 140 bikes. And my map got messed up on this one for some reason, but you have the maps in front of you, and the numbers that are on each of those stations are the number of docking points or the number of racks that you'll see at each of those stations. But really, this is originally planned to be 108 bikes and 12 stations. So that's what Alta recommended. We've started to really look at opportunities as far as new developments that were coming online after they had already released their plan, and started to add things based on those new developments and activity that we felt like might have been missed in that original opportunity. But we also came across additional funding, and we were able to expand the size of our phase one and then increase our density, which is also going to help make that a little bit more flexible, a little bit more accessible for the general public, and then from that, hopefully increase our revenue as well. So as you'll see, in phase one, we'll have the 19 stations, BOK, library, OSU Tulsa, the ballpark, Chapman Green, really high destination areas, but then also looking at our businesses downtown, visitor centers, and then some of these new apartment complexes that have opened as well. And then our phase two, or phase 1.25 or 1.5, whatever you want to call it, I'm not going to start placing expansion numbers on this because it's probably just going to happen as I've given money, because that's the biggest thing is funding is made available. We want to expand as quickly as possible because it's just going to make that system bigger and even greater and be able to reach more people. Okay, so what's next? The release of the new logo and visual identity, so stay tuned. I think this is going to be probably the most exciting thing that we have to share with you up until launch. We've put a lot of hard work into this, and we're really excited to see the community's reaction to this, and we think it's going to be a lot of fun. Another big thing that we'll have is the Tulsa Bike Share sponsor release, or press release, so we'll announce our sponsors at this time. A lot of those have been private up until that moment, and then we'll also showcase the bikes themselves and do a press release on what to expect from the system and how it will operate. And then we'll do the website launch at that same time and then launch our membership drive. As far as what you'll see in the public atmosphere is we'll be doing station sighting and placement for the anticipation of the bike delivery, and then we will launch. So stay tuned for exact dates on when to launch as soon as I have that delivery date, and know that I'm going to push it hard. I know that I've been anticipating that for a minute now, and so as soon as we have it, I'll be sure to share it with you guys. So how can you help, you ask? So follow us on social media, Facebook and Twitter, Tulsa Bike Share. So as soon as we have that new brand out, we'll be switching these over. So stay tuned on there in order to see when we'll be launching our new Facebook page and new social media channels. Get excited. I think another big thing is to think about how you might use Bike Share. So if you're downtown for phase 1, start thinking about how this can influence your behavior or how you might use this to supplement some of your car trips that you might make from driving from the Brady to TCC. I actually feel like a huge fraud today. I'm so sorry, but I drove a 4-door Dodge Ram today. I was moving and my dad needs his car back, so I have to take it to him after this. But did not bike. I drove a giant truck that is completely unsustainable, so I'm sorry. And then tell your family, tell your friends, tell your dog. They might want to take a ride in the basket. You never know. But thank you. Now I'll take questions.
Hey, so I'm Brennan. Thanks for presenting. How much space during your 1.25 phase should I expect if I wanted to have maybe a dock near my place on 15th and Delaware? Because there's like 3 bus stops like right there.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would need to talk about you about many things, but how much space would I expect to allow for like 3 or 4 docks or in that area?
Yeah. So we can fit like 1 station. I mean, really, there's the ability to create stations with this system that we're developing in a much smaller footprint than some of the past systems, but typically about 1 car space, so 1 parking spot.
Okay.
But
perfect.
then some of the larger ones would require about 2 parking spots.
And in the future, do you ever foresee any like double-seated bikes, or maybe like one with like a side hitch for your kids, or
Yeah, no, I think that's really exciting, and that's what's kind of fun now about the bike share industry is it's been around for a while now, and so you're starting to see a little bit more innovation within the equipment itself. So one thing is that electric assist bikes are something that we're already looking at. Our pedal assist, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but you pedal and it creates a little bit more momentum for you. And we're really excited to start looking at how we might implement those into the system. But then I know Austin has trikes or like 2-seaters, as you mentioned, that they've started building into their system as well. It's definitely something that's on our minds.
Mike McCann, 2 questions. The first one is the cost, what's the cost range on a per time increment, and is it a ramp up or is it like a flat line? In other words, each increment, is it the exact same amount or does it ramp up the longer you have the bike? That's the first question.
Yes. So to answer that, we'll do a prorated. So it'll be like a flat hourly rate, and you can do that, but it will be prorated to your specific usage.
And what's that cost?
So we're still looking at the exact cost because we are working with the vendor because they've been beta testing that new equipment, and so they've been testing out different pricing options in some of these areas where they're beta testing it. But it's going to be between $6 to $8 an hour, but then it's prorated to a minute. But then if you're a member, you would actually get an hour for free, as we mentioned, or that'd be wrapped into your membership.
And then the second question, how will you deal with maintenance as the bicycles, have flat tires, things of that nature?
So as I mentioned, our partnership with the Hub, so they would actually be the people that are out in the field and will be providing that maintenance on a daily basis. So that portion of the operations will be 7 days a week. We'll have people out in the field checking tire pressure, but it's really just making sure that you have hands on each bike at least every 6 months for a full overhaul. But the hope would be that each week you're out in the field checking each of those bikes. But on the bikes themselves, we also have the ability for a user to market for maintenance, which I think is the biggest thing that Tulsa Townies could use. Is as I'm sure you've experienced, is you get out there and there might be a flat tire and there's no way to really tell someone. So if they haven't been out that day or haven't been out that week, there's no way to tell. So these bikes actually have the capability for a user to mark it, and it will lock that bike, and no one will be able to use it until it's been provided maintenance.
Matt Newman with Covanta. I have a couple of questions also to follow your lead. Number one, the Brady District bikes, will they have blenders on?
I hope so. Maybe phase 2.
That's kind of important in the Brady District. No, really, real question. Huh? Marguerite? Yeah, exactly. Not to encourage drinking and driving. Real question, though. Will you have like an add-on to Route Tulsa, the app, Route Tulsa, or something like that, where we can just find the closest dock or the closest bike to where we're standing?
Yeah, so it comes with our vendor provides a mobile application, and so it's all GPS enabled. I think there's ways for us to share that GPS feed as well, so you can share it with Google. We're already working with MTTA to incorporate some of that into their trip planning app as well. We haven't thought about Route Tulsa per se, but I think that'd be really easy for us to do. It's just a matter of us providing that data to them. And that's one thing that we really don't have a problem with. I think as we mentioned, we really want to be community centered. And part of this is that we're excited to see what we can actually do with the data that's produced. So each of our bikes has GPS on them, and we're excited because that'll actually show us where people are using those bikes. And one of the big things that we plan to do is share that information with the city planning staff, with INCOG, and so we can really start to see how that information might influence future infrastructure or future planning as well.
I was just wondering if you could speak to some of the phase 2 or phase 3 vision. Do you imagine that eventually there would be stations throughout Midtown? People could commute to work downtown, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the strategic business plan online, you can see what Alta had originally planned. I think we are starting to adapt that because it didn't incorporate some of the station siting or station planning for the BRT. So we haven't necessarily locked down specific places for those stations yet, but we'll definitely hit the Pearl District, 15th Street, 11th Street, the Gathering Place, and then also Brookside. So those will probably be the next opportunities for expansion, and those will probably come a lot sooner than you may think as well.
Leslie Harrison. Okay, 2 questions. One is, are there going to be gears on these bikes? And the second question is, I don't totally understand. Can you take them out of downtown overnight, or would it be an exorbitant charge and then bring them back the next day? Because if you're going to work with the bus system, you can take 2 bikes on the bus, but so you could get all over town, but it might be a big charge if you do that.
It definitely would be an exorbitant charge, unfortunately, but that's really just to still encourage people to use them for short trips. So we don't want this to be a personal bike, and so we don't want people to take it over. I mean, they could, and we'll charge them accordingly. So if they want to, they can. But I think part of our mission would be that if you are looking for something as a means of like personal use, we would direct them to maybe the Tulsa Hub or to one of the local bike shops. But I know that Tulsa Hub has lots of opportunities for people to access a bike at an affordable cost or through their work programs. But then your first question, I'm blanking on what that was. Oh, gears. Yeah, so we're actually going to have 8 gears, which typically they're only 3 geared, but the bikes that we've selected have 8, which is really, really incredible. Probably more than we'll need, but there will be 8.
Hi, I'm Mark Collins from the University of Tulsa, and I'm curious what's going to happen now with the pink bike system. So if you're envisioning going to the gathering place, now we're talking about recreational biking, which has been pretty successful as opposed to point for appointments. So what happens to those guys as you begin to expand?
Oh, absolutely. So we're really excited about the pink bikes or Tulsa Townies because they've been a great partner of ours already. And so we've discussed opportunities as far as placement along the river parks. And they're actually amenable and open to the idea of moving those bikes to another location in town. But what we have the flexibility of doing within our own system is different pricing structures for different use. So what we could see is that we could do more recreational pricing along just the river parks trails. So with that GPS capability, you can actually create paths. And so we would use wayfinding and then also messaging through the bikes itself because they'll have an LED screen. Is you would be able to like communicate with the rider and tell them whether they're going to acquire an additional charge to leave this specific area or whether or not they want to use it for a different use or however that might look.
Daniel, Larry Mitchell with Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I recently had the chance to travel abroad and spend a week in Valencia, Spain, and I think they have a fully evolved bike share system, which is what we're hoping for at some point in time. And city of 900,000 people had 275 bike stations and about 3,000 bikes, and strategically placed where you can get anywhere in town, a much more compact land area than Tulsa, so it's easy in 20 or 30 minutes to get anywhere. But they have protected bike lanes everywhere where there's a barrier between the bike lane and the cars, and that seemed to really make this the over-the-top successful system. I know Tulsa, with the GO plan that Jennifer mentioned, is heading in that direction. But it seems like that's a key element for the success of the bike share program. And I know Mayor Bynum has expedited some of the funding for the GO plan. Do you want to comment on that, how you see those two working together?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that as many of you probably know, that if we waited for infrastructure in Tulsa to do anything, it probably wouldn't ever happen. So, we considered that pretty heavily and whether or not we wanted to wait for that infrastructure. And I think it's something that, yes, it would be really beneficial for us to wait until that's all on the ground. But I think there's several things occurring downtown that will help us is we have much more right-of-way than we need. And then also you have low speeds already. So I think that the way that we plan to assist our users is we've developed our own wayfinding plan. And so we're actually going to be developing our own wayfinding and implementing that upon launch in order to assist users down maybe a safer or more comfortable path and help them kind of find a direction without maybe the comfort and ease of using a bike lane. But then obviously we'll adapt as those networks are implemented. So as we said, you have the ability to move these around. And so the stations that you see now are probably likely to be moved in some regard at some point or another, whether it's just across the street or whether it's a block away. But I do think that it's something that we're really excited to see, and we're glad that that's being pushed forward. But we hope to see more of it.
Hello, Daniel. Hello, everyone. I'm Ren Barger with the Tulsa Hub. We have a crew here today. If you'd like to visit with us afterwards, I'm definitely going to stay if you have questions about our side of it, our partnership. The most exciting thing that I wanted to tell you about our maintenance and operation relationship with Bike Share is that we are going to be hiring people from our charitable mission to be trained, to be employed, to be the maintainers and the operators of the system. So I do want to thank Daniel and INCOG again for taking this risk and this vision that this isn't just a transportation system, it's also an opportunity to provide some really meaningful, equitable development in downtown Tulsa and beyond. My question for you, Daniel, is did I hear you say that the MTTA, the bus system, is interested in helping Bike Share be a part of that transit option, meaning that if I was to buy a bus pass, I might be able to use with Bike Share or vice versa?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
No, so we're really just working out the logistics right now. So they are currently developing a new trip planning app, and so part of that is just that we're waiting for them to kind of make progress on that so that we can start looking at how that information would be shared with that specific system.
Cool.
Thank you.
Look at Tulsa leading the way. So thank you so much, Daniel. This is really exciting, and we'll definitely love for you to come and update us as things unfold so that we can definitely help support you and get engaged. So very exciting. Lots of great things are happening. I love the partnership that developed with Tulsa Hub that's been here for such a long time doing good work, and to see that synergy happening. And that's what is fun to see Tulsa just continue to unfold in this way and those kinds of partnerships. Thank you all for joining us. We do have a little drawing. We had 2 gifts that were brought by Matt Newman, and then we also have a solar-powered charger, and that's for when you go on those long bike trips that you've got that. So, will you do the first drawing? These first 2 are for the gift that Matt Newman brought, which is a mug here. Let's see. The first person is Shaga. All right, Shaga, come on down. All right. And I think I just saw that Shaga just joined the Water Co. Is that right? All right, great. Okay, and the next winner of a mug comes to Tony Kirby. Is Tony here? Maybe Tony has. Oh, all right. Oh, come on down. All right, great. All right. And congratulations. And the final, the solar power charger, Sustainable Tulsa solar power charger, goes to Mitchell. Oh, wait. Let's see. Oh, Larry Mitchell. All right, Larry. All right. Thank you all. Stick around, get a smoothie, and I think Daniel will be here for a little bit, and stay and network and visit. We appreciate you. We'll see you next month. It'll be on recycling.